What's going on, Vikings fans? Welcome to the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, I wanted to go over 3 players that I could see our Minnesota Vikings trading for before the start of the 2024 NFL season. With still holes needed to be filled on this roster, maybe Kwesi Adofo-Mensah hits the trade market to do just so. But before we dive into that, guys, we just got declared in a little sub-battle to 100 subscribers by our Falcons Today show here at Chat Sports, and it's a little personal with Atlanta since they took our quarterback in free agency. So if you guys are new here and have not hit that subscribe button just yet, I really encourage you guys to do so, and I would appreciate it. So hit that sub button if you guys want more Vikings content all over your YouTube page. But you guys may be asking yourself, well, how could the Vikings trade for anybody with their limited draft capital? And I totally understand what you're saying. If we're looking at the 2025 draft capital for the Vikes, right now, as it stands, they technically only have 3 picks with a first and 2 fifths, but they are expected to get a comp pick for Kirk Cousins. We originally thought that they could get 2 comp picks for also Danielle Hunter leaving, but right now, according to the chart, the Vikings only have a 3rd-round comp pick. But they do have some ammunition to work with in 2026. Still have their first, they got their second, they got their 3rd, a 4th, and a 5th. And they do have that 7th-round conditional from the LA Rams in the Cam Akers trade. So, yes, not a whole lot to work with for Minnesota, but, we've seen that Kwesi has kind of lived by the mentality of F them picks as of lately. So I could definitely see them, trying to get better on the margins here and trading for one of these 3 guys. But number 1 on my list is Treylon Burks, the Tennessee Titans wide receiver, who's actually a former first-round pick. The Titans took him 18th overall. And I think it was 2 draft classes ago. And listen, the Titans have been active in adding wide receivers to their roster. You signed Calvin Ridley. You also did just sign Tyler Boyd on Tuesday. So I fully expect Tennessee to be trying to ship out Treylon Burks whenever they can. And for another reason, he hasn't been too productive in Tennessee over his first 2 seasons in the National Football League. His rookie year was his best year, having 33 catches, 444 yards, a touchdown, 3.5 yards per catch. But overall, last season wasn't too productive, only 220 yards, no touchdowns, 13 8-point yards per catch. And I do think there is a need at the wide receiver 3 spot for the Minnesota Vikings. They got the 2 top dogs, Jefferson and Jordan Addison, one of the best combinations and best duos we have in the NFL. But then you got a bunch of other guys. You got Brandon Powell, who I like but don't love. I want to see what Jalen Naylor could potentially develop into, the 6th-round pick from Michigan State a couple years ago. N'Keal Harry, Tristan Jackson, Lucky Jackson, guys that are on the practice squad that have gotten some reps in the NFL, but are they true wide receiver 3s by any means? No. But I do think Treylon Burks would it be a great option for wide receiver 3? We talked about Tyler Boyd, who obviously went to the Titans. We've been talking about Michael Thomas, as I would like him as well. But, I wouldn't mind the Vikings taking a chance on a former top 20 pick in the NFL draft. And, Treylon Burks, he's not going to blow you away by any means if you go look at his tape, in his NFL career so far. But go look at his tape when he was at Arkansas. He was an absolute game changer, absolute wrecker with the football in his hands. And taking back a look here at his combine numbers, not actually a freak athlete by any means. 4.55 40-yard dash, only a 33-inch vertical. His 10-yard split was at 1.54. But, I do think there is some, potential there with Treylon Burks. And actually his NFL comp coming out of college was a pretty damn good receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. And that was actually A.J. Brown. I think A.J. Brown is a much superior athlete. I didn't really personally like that conversation, but I like the idea of getting, a big body wide receiver in there for Minnesota. And, the Vikings wide receiver room with Jefferson and Jordan Addison, like those 2 guys can hop in the slot whenever. They're extremely versatile wide receivers, so that gives Treylon Burks the opportunity to run those reps from the X spot and be the outside guy. But, if it requires them giving up a 5th-round pick, I would take a flyer on a guy who was drafted in the top 20 for a reason. But you guys let me know, would you trade for Treylon Burks? Give me a T for trade or give me a P for pass down in the comment section. I'll make this a pinned comment, so if YouTube throws an ad break your way, sit back, let it play, and let me know if you would trade for Treylon Burks. Number 2 on my list is my favorite option here, and that is Jonathan Allen, the defensive end from the Washington Commanders. And I think there's no doubt the Vikings still have a need at the defensive end, defensive tackle spot. And if you could bring in a guy like Jonathan Allen, who is still extremely productive, I think that'll be a great pickup for the Minnesota Vikings, having 53 tackles last year, 5.5 sacks, 10 TFLs, and 19 quarterback hits from the interior of the defensive line. He has been just the definition of consistency throughout his NFL career, and we have seen it. Washington wants to get younger. You look at some of their moves, through the NFL draft, through free agency, let go of Montez Sweat last trade deadline and Chase Young. Like, they want to get younger and more athletic up front, and I think the next move that could happen is a guy like Jonathan Allen being dealt out. They also did draft defensive tackle Jauan Newton from Illinois, so just even more juice to him potentially being traded. But, as it stands right now, I love the edge group that the Minnesota Vikings have with Dallas Turner, picked at 17, Jonathan Grenard, the young and up-and-coming edge rusher we got from the Houston Texans. But even a guy like Andrew Van Ginkel, who is extremely, extremely solid for the Vikes last season. I also like Patrick Jones, but there is a definite need at that defensive tackle spot. I like Harrison Phillips a whole lot. He has been great for the Vikings since he came over from the Buffalo Bills, but are we really going to roll out Jerry Tillery as a second defensive tackle for Minnesota? I really doubt that. So I think they're, if the Vikings are going to make a move, if they're going to make another huge blockbuster trade here, it would probably be for a defensive tackle in comparison to a wide receiver. That is just my opinion. But also, the Vikings obviously do have a need at offensive guard, and I was trying to get some trade targets at the offensive guard position. Couldn't really find some that were too likely, but you guys let me know. What say you? What is a bigger position of need for Minnesota? If you had to pick one in a perfect world, would you rather trade for a defensive tackle, get stronger on that side of the football, or protect Sam Darnold or J.J. McCarthy and get an offensive guard? Give me a DT for defensive tackle or OG for offensive guard. We'll get to my last name here in a second, but I got to tell you guys about a sweet deal we have going on at chatsports.com/Vikings jersey. We got J.J. McCarthy jerseys in stock right now. So if you guys want to get the hottest jersey that's going to be worn at US Bank Stadium this season and be rocking that number 9 J.J. McCarthy jersey, hit that link, chatsports.com/Vikings jersey. That link for you guys is in the comments section and description of today's show. Well, let's wrap up today's show talking about another wide receiver Minnesota could trade for, and that is Jauan Jennings, the San Francisco 49ers receiver, who is an absolute burner. And the reason why he could be traded from San Fran is that wide receiver room is getting crowded. They took the first-round pick, Percival, out of Florida. They also drafted another receiver in the 3rd round. Now, obviously, you do have, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. Expect them to move off at least one of those guys, but I could easily see Jauan Jennings also being a name traded. And also, he hasn't had, too many, reps here with the San Francisco 49ers throughout his career. Never eclipsing more than 450 yards in his first 3 seasons, but he has that top-end speed that I love so much. And, that's the thing. If the Vikings are going to bring in another wide receiver, I either want him to either be an absolute burner, can take the top off the defense, or be a Treylon Burks type of archetype where it's that big body guy who can go catch, 50-50 balls. But you guys see the production on screen right now. 282 yards, 416, 265. Never really been the most productive guy for San Fran. If the Vikings would bring him in, I think it would be Jennings, Powell, and Naylor battling it out for that wide receiver 3 spot. And, I would lean Jalen Naylor. You guys know this. I've said this on the channel countless times. I am a huge Jalen Naylor fan. I just think he just needs that opportunity to, really see what he can do in the NFL. And, his tape at Michigan State was great. Obviously never the most productive guy when he was with the Spartans, but he pops off the screen when you watch him. Super elusive, super shifty. So if I had to pick one of these 3, Jennings, Powell, or Naylor to be wide receiver 3, I would still go Jalen Naylor. But obviously, we're going to have to wait and see what Minnesota decides to do at that position. But according to from the 3 trade targets I did give you guys, pick one you guys would trade for. I'm typing my JAs, no doubt about it, but maybe you guys disagree with me. Give me a TB for Treylon Burks, JA for Jonathan Allen, or give me a JJ for Jauan Jennings. It would be cool to have another JJ. Got JJ McCarthy, Justin Jefferson. Add another one would be pretty sweet. But out of these 3, I go Jonathan Allen, no doubt about it. Now, if you guys want more Vikings content on your Twitter timeline, I'm going to be tweeting about the Vikes all off season long and all throughout next season. So if you guys want to give me a follow over there, Twitter handle @PatSieps, and I'll give you guys a follow back. But thank you guys so much for watching our little trade rumors roundup on today's show. See y'all next time. And as always, Skol Vikes.